Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. We've got a really awesome guest today. She is a facilitator and strategist at WIK D Design Thinking for Social Change, founding partner of Herrainco Brand Strategy and Design, an award-winning consultancy run with her husband, Ray Hrynkow, for 35 years. She completed a master's in liberal studies at SFU in 2019 and a graduate certificate at Cal Arts in 2015. And she has a Bachelor of Design and Communication Design from Emily Carr, which brings us back to 1977 and 2005. So please join me in welcoming Casey Herrainco. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Thomas. I will correct one thing. Cal Arts is what I thought the school was originally, but it was actually California College of the Arts, which is a different, I think it's a different school.
Oh,
I
okay.
could be wrong.
I will correct that. Okay, great. Are you ready for 20 questions?
I sure am.
Great. Question one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Okay. Well, just to put it in context, just because it's my life, I'm a widow and I'm a new wife, and I'm a mother of two wonderful humans, and I have three grandkiddos from my son and another six that are my husband's and mine. So that makes nine grandchildren, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
I am a strategist, so I help people figure out the best ways to do things, and then I use design thinking tools to do that. So that they're the tools that achieve the objective. Um, I'm wondering why people can't treat each other equally and with respect, especially where it concerns people experiencing poverty and homelessness.
Mhm.
I wonder why it's so hard to deal with addictions and resulting overdose deaths and injuries.
Mhm.
Really wonder that. And I'm a foodie, so I'm interested in food sustainability, particularly from small mixed crop farms interfacing urban areas.
Great. That's great. Just a note for our audience, Casey came onto my radar, I think when I was thinking about master's studies, another nod to graduate liberal studies. That's where Casey did her master's, and then I ended up kind of following her and doing my master's, the same master's as well. And we both spoke at the same TEDx event in different years. So some overlap there.
Mhm.
Question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I think it's intrinsic knowledge for me. It's my empathy. It's a little off the charts for me. I read people quite well, and I can get them to tell stories. And in those stories, there is so much power.
That's great. I love storytelling.
Mhm.
Um, three is why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
I kind of fell into it. I really love what I do, and I guess it kind of just drew me in. Um, but I will say I really did want to be a veterinarian. And then when I had my first child, I wanted to go into medicine. And then when I got my undergrad degree at Emily Carr, I really wanted to be an industrial designer. So I'm a little bit restless. Um, but my empathy and my writing ability and my ability to tell stories kind of drew me into what I do now from design, where I started.
Nice. Yeah. Before this recording, I was checking you out on YouTube and listening to some of your stories, and they draw you in such a strong way. But it's super interesting to hear how you draw that out of people, actually.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. So number four is what does your future look like?
Well, this is interesting because I think a lot of your guests, so maybe not all, some of them are my age, but I'm kind of at a crossroads at my age. Um, I really want to slow down. This is a struggle I deal with every day. Um, but I think I need to always work. But it gets harder to do as I get older. I have less energy. I get more tired. You need the occasional nap. I won't ever admit to that, but it's true. Um, uh, so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a scary, veiled netherland somewhere ahead of me that kind of worries me a little bit. Um, so I don't really know. I just want to keep going and try and make a difference. So that's not really great, but that's what I got.
Yeah, it's super interesting. The more I hear the guests answer this, the weirder it becomes because, during pandemic, all these awful things happen, but then there's this kind of smoke and mirrors that says, oh, working from remotely is actually quite good in some ways. And we have to kind of question all of that, I guess, when we think about the future.
We do, yeah. That kind of leads to your next question in some ways.
Yeah, so number five is let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Yeah. So, I kind of thought this question was leading to the fact that I live in Vancouver and the region and what that means. But for me, location has kind of been the bane of my existence. I live in Maple Ridge, which is a suburb of Vancouver, at least an hour away, sometimes an hour and a half. And it's an hour and a half from Squamish, which is where my grandchildren are. I feel like commuting is such a waste of time and carbons. And I wish I could snap my fingers and just be there. Um, COVID made Zoom a household word, and I think it's really helped me.
Mhm,
Um, but you can't hug your grandkids on Zoom.
mhm,
Um, I really, really, really hate driving. I tell my friends that I want to stick needles in my eyeballs when I have to drive. I just hate it.
mhm,
And I feel incredibly guilty about using gas-powered engine, even if it is a hybrid.
mhm,
Um, and it's interesting that because in thinking about homelessness, poverty, and addiction, people, at least a lot of them, in every community believe that people suffering from these indignities come from somewhere else. Like there's some magic bus that brings them to your community from a different city. Like there were never any people with problems in their community before. Um, that need to make people something other, quote unquote, in order to process that they're in your place and not like you. Um, it astounds me. So part of what I want to do is to help communities process that we can't be some homogenous group of middle income white people with no problems. The variety in our communities is what makes us a community, and that as a community, we all want to lift each other up. So I went a little bit beyond place, but it's all there.
It's good, that I have tangential thoughts around that, and maybe this is what you say as you pull stories out of people. We had John Mayeda on as a guest recently, and he really kind of shifted things a bit for me because he talked about this kind of strange friend that he had that was a strange person, and how that kind of was not a good thing, and how I don't know. I came to a place where I thought maybe it's better to fit in regardless of which slot you fit into. And I began questioning that, and I've been questioning that up until now. It's very interesting to hear kind of from you and in the kind of groupings that we do with people.
Yeah, and my brother, who is a uh, um, coach of sorts, I won't say any more about that, but he defines this um, innate issue we have as human beings is to see difference because when we were hunting and gathering and living in caves, uh, difference was danger, and for some reason that still stays with us. And the thing is that if you look at somebody who's my little story is it's you're in Tim Hortons and you're having coffee sitting at a table and and you're just casually chatting with somebody you don't know, and you have a really good conversation with them, and then 2-3 weeks later you see them out in the street sitting on the sidewalk looking disheveled and maybe with their hat out for money, and you can't even look at them, and yet you'd had a very cogent discussion with them prior to that. What changed? Why did that person suddenly become a danger to you? And it is fear. It's fear that people are afraid of people who are other than. You know,
Mhm.
uh, and that goes with Indigenous people and people of color. And it just uh, I can't figure it out. I can't figure out why we haven't developed further in our brains with this aspect. but I could go on for days with this one, so maybe we should move on.
Yeah, for sure. Quick note. We booked Debbie Millman, and she gives some great talks about not just branding, but kind of the symbols and the ways that we group things in order to better understand, or in order to simplify the way that we understand them.
Yes.
And it does make me think, what you're saying does make me think a lot about that. Number 6 is, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
I have been wrestling with this question since I saw it on your list. And so I just kind of let it sit with me. And I think what bubbles up for me is that it's not as bad or as serious as you think it is, as far as work is concerned. I've had some really big hits personally. Those were as bad and as serious as I thought they were, and made moving forward in my work so much more difficult. But I did. So I think, in relative terms, work it's very important, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't go right that day. Or if your plan doesn't quite work out the way you intended it to. There's a lesson to be learned in being turned around, and I think you have to say to yourself, okay, what is it that I need to learn here? Not I failed. It's an opportunity to learn.
Nice, I like it. Number 7 is, what's your day in the life like?
Well, certainly now it's different than when I was running a big design firm, but I get up early. I try to meditate. I have coffee with my husband while I chip away on my emails. I always have at least one Zoom meeting a day, sometimes a few. Sometimes, I go interface with people, and sometimes I actually go into town and, have meetings there. I write, which is usually for work, either designing a workshop or synthesizing the data from one. I try to get my personal projects in somewhere, but in the day. But between dog walks and maybe a Peloton ride, suddenly it's supper time. So it's the days feel really short to me. I just feel like there isn't enough time.
Absolutely. Number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic these days. How do you stay up to date?
Well, as you know, I finished my Master in Liberal Studies in 2019 at the age of 65. So that was a big chunk of extra learning. I go to conferences, and not always about design. So I went to the Othering and Belonging conference in Oakland, California. Just let me quit that app so that we don't have that happen again. So that was a really cool conference from the Othering and Belonging Institute at, oh shoot, I can't remember the university, but anyway, it was good. I digress. I am an American political junkie. I'm embarrassed to say. So I read the New York Times and a blog or two, and I have bouts of book reading. I have a tremendous number of books, which I have at least read some parts of, if not all. My life seems to come at me in waves, and I think this is a big thing about lifelong learning, where one wave is a lot of work, and the next wave is a lot of learning, and the next wave is a lot of family stuff, and it kind of repeats, and it can be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months that those waves kind of seem to happen. So I find it's better to just roll with it than to fight it. And I think you learn from everything, and I will tell every young person that every chance I get. Nothing is a waste. No experience, bad or good, is a waste of time. No course that you take is a waste of time. Everything feeds into your knowledge base and what you can do with your life. So I think lifelong learning is, I love it. I hope that people don't hate it and do it anyway, but I think it's so valuable.
Next 9 is, what tools do you use? Are you a digital nomad?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure about the digital nomad, what that meant, but my laptop and my iPhone are permanently attached to me. I don't go anywhere without them. I always work at least a little bit every day, and I work on holidays too. I just can't help it. I love work. I use Slack, Google Jamboard, Miro sometimes, Basecamp. Um, and I'm a type junkie, not as bad as Keith Tam. No one is, but it's not so much about font versus font, but certain cuts of certain fonts and the right kerning for the font. And when I'm proofreading, I'm looking at rags and bad breaks more than I'm looking at anything.
Nice, I like that. We had a great guest on, SFU professor Ron McCarry, and in his work, he talks about the phone and the computer as a integral part of who we are, and in that way making us not just human but humans that have these things attached to them.
Or cyborgs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 10, how do you deal with work-life balance?
Well, I think you get what you get. Um, with two young kids and a company to run, it was absolutely insane. I don't know how I did it. I still don't know. Now that I'm living in an almost semi-rural town with a husband who's fully retired, we do take more time to do things and enjoy life a bit. A lot more walking, a lot more out in the forest and that kind of stuff. We're not doing world tours or anything like some of my neighbors that disappear on cruises for 6 months, but we get away to my house in Tofino several times a year, and we plan trips to other places as well. Um, and I think we're still catching up from COVID, from not being able to travel then. I mean, we had a plan to go to Austin, Texas, and a few other places just to kind of experience blues music in the U.S. And that kind of got sidelined, and we're hoping to get it done this year or so. That's work-life balance for us. And the dogs too. The dogs are, well, we had one. We've just been sponsoring another dog, and we asked if we can adopt her. They're just so good for you. My God, they're so settling.
Nice. We're halfway. Number 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
That's pretty easy. I'd be a veterinarian, or a human doctor, or an industrial designer.
Hmm. 12, what would you not like to do in terms of career?
Um, Honestly, at this point in my life, it's anything that involves standing up. I hate being on my feet.
Good. 13, what's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
And that one was easy too. We need to stop pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. That's Desmond Tutu.
Beautiful. Number
Yeah.
14, what's your least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Today, I'd say it's the word woke. Um, I kind of find a new one every day, so I didn't answer this question until today, but I heard it again and a discussion about it, and it's just, yeah, no. Um, uh, Dumb words stick in my brain and they drive me crazy, so,
Mm.
but then they're gone the next day, which is great.
15, if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would you choose?
And this is one I know a lot of people on your show have said this in interviews, but my word is curious. I am nosy.
Mhm.
I ask inappropriate questions of perfect strangers because I love people and I want to know what they think.
Mhm.
So if I am standing behind somebody in a lineup at Save on Foods, I will say, "What are you making for dinner?" Because they've got stuff in their basket, and I go, I see some ingredient I haven't tried, and I go, "How are you going to use that?" And. So it's crazy, but it's just I learn. That's another lifelong learning thing. I learned so much from talking to people.
Nice. 16, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, throughout my life, there have been so many things. At this point, it's probably my health. Um, I worry I'll run out of time. I've got so much to do to help make a difference in the world, and I worry that my body's going to betray me. I don't have any particular reason to believe that at this point, but I just, you know, I guess I've sort of had a lifetime of having things screw up at the wrong time,
Mm.
and not for me, but in my life, like, losing people and that kind of stuff. And I kind of fear that.
Final stretch, number 17. What's a dream you're chasing?
Well, right at this moment, it's my high school project, and it came out of my master's work. What I would like to do is start a project led by people with lived experience with poverty and homelessness.
Mm,
And I would like them to work with high school students and with high school teachers
mm,
to develop a learning module that helps kids understand the similarities between themselves and people experiencing poverty and homelessness. And in some cases, some of those kids will actually be living that reality as well. But the idea is to develop something which can be packaged and supplied to all high schools in Canada. And the end goal of all of that is to create more passionate and compassionate and informed voters.
Number 18. What inspires you?
Nature and being outside. I really don't like being indoors, but I also hate getting wet and cold, so summer is my time. And this year, apparently, it's also October because, man, are we having nice weather here right now.
You want me to,
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I went kayaking yesterday. It's
Yeah,
October. It's beautiful.
yeah,
Absolutely
I know.
beautiful out.
Yeah.
Number 19. Any advice you'd like to share?
I'm going to be a little bit silly here. I'm going to say use more butter.
Mm,
Use it in spaghetti sauce. Use it in soup. Julia Child would would agree with me. Just one second. Um, Julia Child would agree with me. Butter is the answer to so many things. And I guess the flippant nature of this very real advice is indicative of the fact that you shouldn't take anything too seriously. It'll all work out.
John Maeda said to include protein for breakfast, and it's something he didn't
Yes.
learn about until his 40s, which was, he said he was a carbs guy. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like that too. Love that answer. Yeah.
and number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you? Where should we go to find your ideas? Particularly around your high school project, I think would be a good one.
Yeah, I haven't written much about the high school project yet because I want to get it a little bit more real. But um, I have a website which is wikd.ca, and I write on Medium as Herrainco brand. Will you have this on the um,
Show notes, yeah, we can do that.
okay, good, good. And then I have 3 Instagram accounts. One is C Herrainco, it's Hrynkow, and one is WIK D Design Thinking. And if you want to know what my dogs are up to, you can follow Dudley S Dog. And I'm on LinkedIn as Herrainco Shewchuck and Twitter as Herrainco Brand.
Hey, Casey, thank you so much for being on. Such a pleasure to reconnect with you, thinking about TEDx and thinking about the masters, but then kind of going much beyond that and, going into the humanity of it, I think was really great. Thank you.
Thomas, appreciate it.